All right. You mean basically you just want to have a chat at the weekend and record it? Fine. Yeah.
That's what it sounds like to me.
Because obviously we're all middle-aged now, and a lot of my friends are going through some kind of crisis.
Jesus Christ, man. Oh!
There's a lot of work involved because, I'm going to ask you lots of questions.
You should probably burn her and throw her ashes in the river.
I mean, if you just want to have a conversation for the week, if you're lonely, Richard, just tell me.
You really know how to make me feel self-conscious. I'm sure we were. I'm sure we were cool at one point. Were we? I think so.
Consigning it to digital evidence that will then be played back to them in court.
Why are we even talking about this?
You might lose interest very quickly because I have a habit of making these passion projects very boring very quickly.
Sometimes I just like talking about things that I don't really understand.
So yeah, there you go. There's loads of questions for you. And have a lovely day.
Seriously though, are you sure?
That's my opinion.
They do say it's good to talk, but I never hear them actually talking. This show with Ben and Rich.
This show with Ben and Rich. You found a way to communicate your feelings without actually directly communicating your feelings. Stop it.
It is.
Yeah, my mic wasn't on. It's this show
Hey.
with me and him.
Hello. Good evening.
How are you doing?
Internet world and you, Ben. Yeah, I'm good, man. I think I'm nearly over my cold.
I feel awful, and I really don't feel qualified to tackle today's topic, which is being a grown-up.
Yeah.
As I mentioned to you earlier before we came online, I've just eaten half a tub of ice cream, and it's just the sight of myself in the mirror. I'm not feeling very grown up right now.
You know what, mate? I think half a tub of ice cream is quite childlike. When you're a real man like me, you finish the whole bloody thing.
You think it's my lack of commitment that means that I'm less of an adult?
Yeah, maybe. But if you can't eat a whole tub of Ben and Jerry's,
then what are you doing?
You're basically 7.
That's one of the first things that I wanted to tackle was the definitions, because you wanted to talk about being a grown-up, and the first thing that I had difficulty with was finding the definition between an adult and a grown-up. What do you think? What do you think's the difference between those two ideas?
Well, I reckon being an adult...
Because you're neither of those things.
Thank you. I think being an adult is just like an age thing, isn't it? It's probably 18, maybe 21 at a push.
Yeah, you just got to pay more for stuff.
But I think probably being a grown-up is more a state of mind. And I think there's like clearly defined criteria, really, for each, maybe.
No, that's exactly it. I mean, adult is your fiscal responsibility. It's like you pay more for a ticket to go to the cinema. Sucks. But well, I'm sure that you're going to have lots of opportunities to reference my my vertical disability.
I wasn't going to, because I was going to be
you
a
think
grown-up.
I can feel but you're not a grown-up. That's the whole point of this discussion. Is to I want to expose you to your loved ones. I can't believe somebody's marrying you. Ridiculous. Well, that's a thing you can do when you're an adult.
Yeah.
Do you have to be a grown-up to get married?
Do you know what? I think you only have to be 16 in the UK.
Yeah.
If you have like permission from a parent,
you get
like
write a letter.
It's like getting your ears pierced. As long as your mum writes a letter.
I've got a note from my mum.
Oh man, yeah. I don't know. 16-year-olds getting married. That seems like a disaster. I don't know. Yeah, I suppose marriage is part of it. I think the sort of traditional idea of being a grown-up was finish your education, get a job, move out, get married, have kids. You know, that was like how it was
Absolutely, yeah.
back in the day.
But is that being an adult or a grown-up?
I think it was probably seen as being a grown-up, and if you achieve those things, then you were probably considered a success at being a grown-up.
By all of the other children in the bar.
Yeah, but I really think that's changed now. You know, I mean, just the idea of getting a job, you know,
Yeah.
a steady 9 to 5 is pretty. I mean, I do one basically, but
It's funny
I
you say
haven't
that.
always.
Because I could, just to go back to something that you said a few minutes ago, I do think that it's a state of mind, but I also think that I think most people pretend to be grown up, and being a grown up is getting comfortable with pretending to be a grown up all the time. Because some of the elderly people that I've spoken to in my life, they've always told me at some point that they still feel like they're 20 years old. Like, aging physically doesn't change what's happening inside, and a lot of people, they still feel young. You know, do you think we'll still be having the same conversations that we have now in 20 years, 40? Well, you'll be dead, but like I'll be speaking to your hologram or whatever.
Yeah, I'll be like Chat GPT or something. I don't know. Like, I'll throw it back at you. But do you feel like the conversations me and you had 20 years ago have changed that much?
No, but I mean, it takes me back to, and maybe you can relate to this because you work in care and you work with people.
Hold on. When you say I work in care, it makes it sound like I work in an old people's home, fitting catheters. I work in health and social.
All right, that one. I used to work in a prison, and in my...
Did you?
Yes, do you know about that?
No.
I was a teacher in a prison.
What?
I used to teach before I came to Spain. I was a teacher in a young offenders institute in Wealdstone, just outside of Leeds.
Right, I didn't know that. Okay.
But one of the conversations that I used to have among the staff, and it's a typical criminology conversation, and I'm sure your daughter's probably familiar with this, is nature versus nurture. You know, if the criminally minded are created by their environment, or if they're born with a criminal mentality. I wonder if it's the same kind of thing in terms of maturity. You know, like you say, would we have the same conversations now as we would have had when we were 20? No, but I think that's mostly based on the experiences that we've had. I'm still capable of being powerfully immature, and that's probably why I'm one of the reasons that I'm aggressively single in my 40s. And I will use this as an opportunity to say, listen, if there's anyone out there, if
anyone's listening, please get in contact via YouTube. You sound creepy. It's the creepiest thing in the world, especially when you know the only person who listens to this is your own mum.
Yeah. Well, she might know somebody. I don't know.
She might. Well,
my cousin or something.
Sorry, I forgot where we were going.
You were saying about the difference between a grown-up but it's something that I looked at as well. Grown-ups now versus grown-ups in the past. And when I say in the past, I mean like the 50s, but also when we were kids, because I think generationally there are some very big changes. But I feel like it didn't change for like 100 years or 200 years or something. In the 20th century, a lot of things happened that kind of changed the way that we live and the way that we provide for ourselves and each other. But that whole 2.4 children, my parents, for example, my parents met at school. My dad got an apprenticeship. He went straight into a career which he ended up having for the rest of his life. They got engaged and married when they were 21, I think. Mm-hmm. And then they almost immediately had. Well, no, they had like 5 years of happiness, and then they had their first kid.
Yeah.
But it all happened a lot sooner because it was expected to happen, like you said. It had to happen in that order, and it had to happen earlier rather than later. And there's just this idea of you work, you stick in the same job, you get your pension, you retire, and you live out your remaining 5 years.
Yeah, and sometimes to me, and I don't know if this means I'm becoming a grown up, I look at my dad and his career path, and I think, fucking hell, that's pretty appealing. He worked for one company for like 40 years.
Yeah, man.
Went in as like a graduate. My dad's a clever guy, you know, he's got a PhD and stuff. When going to uni, he was like 1% of the country went to uni. And, you know, met mum after uni. They got together, and dad started, I think he had one job before. He worked for Rolls-Royce making submarines, or stopping submarines rusting.
Nice.
And then
how did you do that?
I said make them out of plastic, and he told me to shut up. But then, then he went on to some company, he basically power, you know, electricity. He made electric. I don't know how. But yeah, he worked for them for like 35, 40 years. He's got some certificate on his office wall, and he seems like happy. He retired fairly early, decent pension.
It's such a kind of rigid career path as well. Like my dad helped make rockets for British Aerospace, and he started off as just an apprentice, like doing carpentry. So how the hell do you go from there to there? That's ridiculous. That career path doesn't even exist nowadays. But you know, I have nostalgia for a time that I wasn't even alive in. I do, and this is a strange phenomena that I wanted to talk to you about. I think that I can't tell if it's because the current environment, the current reality that I live in, has changed in a way that I don't approve of, or if it's me becoming a middle-aged man. I think it's a combination of both, but I've started to notice my dad's words coming out of my mouth. Like, I get annoyed about stuff. I get annoyed about stuff that he he used to come into my room and just turn the volume down on my stereo when I was blasting out, I don't know, Rage Against the Machine or something. What's this? This isn't real music. What a load of old rubbish. And I think that now. I think that about modern music, like reggaeton. Is like, what is that? What are you doing? What are you listening to?
Can we touch briefly on your weekend, the experience you've had over the weekend, and how annoyed you were at this? So, I mean, you should probably explain.
I think it's justified rage, though. It's justifiable.
So it was basically noise was upsetting you, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, it was. Yeah, there was a very huge guy that was staying at my apartment because I do couch surfing. If anyone doesn't know what that is, people can come and stay at your house for free while they're travelling, and you kind of exchange stories, not fluids, just stories, and maybe they give you a little gift from wherever they've come from. It's nice. It's nice. It's pleasant.
It sounds like you're asking to be murdered. Carry on.
I've never had a negative experience. I wouldn't count my experience over the weekend as a negative one. It was just unusual. Because I started to get ill on Friday, which added to my lowered level of patience. And this guy, who was a big dude, like he's a very big frame, big build, just started stomping around in the middle of the night. And slamming doors, like just walking around outside my bedroom, and I didn't get to sleep. And then and also he was pissing every hour as well, which I'm not at that stage of my life yet, but I've got friends that have prostate problems, and I know what it sounds like. I've stayed at one of my friends who has a prostate problem. He gets up in the middle of the night and he goes to the bathroom. Don't do it in the bedroom. He goes to the bathroom, and I know what it sounds like when somebody's having a prostate piss, because it's a strain, and then just a bloop, because it's just you can squeeze a drop out. But this guy was going for a full healthy jet of piss every hour. I don't even know how. He must be like a coconut or something. He's like full of moisture. So yeah, that was happening all night, and I was very, very irritated by that. And the second night he broke my bed. That sounds bad. That sounds really bad.
He broke a bed.
He broke the bed in the spare room. It collapsed at about 5 o'clock in the morning, and he tried to kind of fix it by just slamming it against the wall. Because that's what you do, isn't it, at 5 a.m. And my downstairs neighbour, because I live in a block of apartments, was banging on his ceiling. And I just thought he's just pissed everyone off in my building. And then the next day he came back, and I opened the door for him, and he came up and he was trying to open my neighbour's door. He was like, hello? I was like, it's open. I had him rattling something, and I opened the door. I was like, what are you doing? He's trying to go in my neighbour's apartment. So anyway, I'm not very grown up when it comes to stuff like that. I am quite patient. It's just that I was ill over the weekend, and I didn't have time for that shenanigans.
The end result of this is you got pissed off with him for making noise whilst you were trying to sleep like an old man, and you kicked him out and made him homeless in a strange city where he knows no one, which seems like maybe a slight overreaction. But
he went immediately to an Airbnb. He was better off. He was better off somewhere else, I think, where he can walk around in the middle of the night unabated and do his powerful pissing.
maybe he's pissed them off as well. Who knows? Yeah, but I mean, that is being grumpy part of being a grown-up. I think I'm quite grumpy. I think
you've always been like that, though.
Sharon and the girls would say I'm grumpy. I was particularly grumpy last night, and and I guess that's another thing about being a grown-up. I think being a bit more self-aware and knowing when you've done something maybe a bit wrong and apologising for it, whether you want to or not. That feels like a grown-up thing.
Well, I think you're hitting on the perimeter of one of the most essential parts of being a grown-up, which is taking responsibility.
Yeah.
Which is just sucks. Who wants to be? I don't want to be responsible for my own actions. I just want to do my actions.
And I mean that's the difference between a child and someone older, isn't it?
A grown up. I honestly don't think that we really grow up. I think that we just pretend, and you have to maintain that farce for your entire adulthood, because like I said, in conversation, one of the things in again, this is a bit paradoxical, but becoming a grown-up, you enter a different kind of psychological space, and you start to realise things about other people who are supposed to have been grown-ups, i.e. your parents. What I discovered when I got to a certain age was that they didn't have a bloody clue what they were doing.
Yeah.
And that's quite shocking. It can be disturbing, but it's also, in a way, comforting, I think, because it demonstrates to yourself that nobody's really got a rule book, and we're all just making it up as we go along.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you want to pull that first pickup, but I'm very lucky, he says, to be a dad, and
I can't believe you worked out how to do it. I mean, surely it was an accident. I don't know. Go on.
Man. Ask her mum. But I think that picture is me and my daughter on the actual hour she was born, and at that point, well, to be honest, no, I didn't accept any sort of responsibility because I was still hammered. But like a year later, once I got myself straight, I realised what this huge responsibility was, and having a daughter. I'm not saying it's the be all and end all. I don't think you need to have children to sort of feel this level of responsibility, or maybe you do, because basically every day since I've been terrified of her getting kidnapped or dying or any sort of harm happening to her, and it's like it's something that literally every single day plays on your mind. And maybe because my daughter doesn't live with me, so I'm not exposed to her constantly, but when she does come over at weekends and stuff, I won't let her eat grapes, and she's 7 now. But I'm
Why
terrified.
do you let her eat grapes?
I won't let her eat grapes.
Why?
Because they're
They're great.
perfect shape and size for choking on.
Yeah, if you don't chew them.
Yeah, but to me, she's still that couple of hours old little lump of meat and with zero intelligence and no ability to swallow.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, I won't let her eat grapes. And Sharon, who's our two eldest are from Sharon's first marriage, she's been through it all. And she's like, just let the kid have a grape. And I'm like, oh, maybe if I cut it into quarters. And my daughter's like there going, Mummy lets me have grapes. I'm absolutely fine with grapes. I could eat razors if I wanted. I'd be fine. But I can't get over that sense of responsibility to just try and keep her alive. And I don't know if that's a primal parental thing or whether that's some... Is that part of being a grown-up? I don't know.
Oh, definitely. I think so. I mean, like, I don't have kids, but I can relate to what you're talking about because I've spent so much time around people who have gone through that process and looking after other people's kids as well. But I don't think I'll ever experience the direct sensation that you're talking about until I had a child of my own. But the sense of maturity that comes with that is finally being responsible for something outside of yourself, because I don't think you ever have that experience until you have a child, because you're always focused on your own survival, your own progress, etc. But the moment you have a child, that they have to come before you, and it's not something that you can manufacture. It's not something that it's not like, oh, I'm gonna get myself a really good car and I'll look after my car. Yeah, you might feel like your car's your little baby, but at the end of the day, it's a car. So yeah, I think there's an element of maturity that comes with having a child. And again, like you bringing it up. I don't think people are doing it as well. They're not. The population is dropping. We've got an aging population in Spain, and people are waiting until later. And because women have entered the workforce as well, they're making different decisions about pursuing their career, etc. That's not a criticism before anyone has a go at me. I'm just saying it's a completely different dynamic to what it was in the 50s, that like we were talking about earlier. And here in Zaragoza, where I live, there's loads of twins, and the reason for that is everybody's doing IVF because they're having kids later on.
Yeah.
And one of the consequences is because there's two eggs involved. It's much more common that you end up with twins.
But I've got a lot of friends. Well, we have. There's
you haven't.
There's you, Jem, Gav, Craig. Yeah, you guys.
James.
Yeah. None of you guys have all either decided not to, or the opportunity hasn't.
I just can't find anyone that will let me do it. I've been honestly, I reckon I'm pretty good at it by now because I've been practicing for ages.
Also, I've got friends at work that are like in their 40s, some are in their 50s, some are in their 30s, and mostly guys, and none of them are interested in having kids. And that seems to be maybe that's our generation. I don't know, our generation and down. Whereas, back in the day, it was part of being a grown up, wasn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. But we do, like, so many things have changed that don't really make space for the family concept nowadays. Even working, like, to an extent, because so many people do remote work. It means that you can have more flexibility with your contract. You're not like privy to the local market. You've got access to the global market. So a lot of people they find themselves doing 6-month contracts or whatever and going somewhere else. And that, I mean, you're not the best example because you've had a new job every 6 months for the last 30 years.
Yeah.
But
I mean, my dad was always so shocked every time I'd change job. And weirdly, I think I've only ever been fired once.
Ah.
I've been like made redundant a few times, and
Yeah.
or I've gone and found something else. But my dad was always like, find something else before you quit.
I don't know how you get away with it consistently.
Yeah, and then my mum, she was NHS. She trained as a nurse and then became a nurse and then did various sort of health jobs and was always NHS. And I think, like, my degree at Bucks was quite odd. It was a bit vague. A bit like what you did, media and English, didn't you? So I suppose that's a bit more focused towards what, journalism maybe. I don't know. Like, my degree was management, branding, and PR.
Oh yeah.
So I mean, it's very sort of vague.
Yeah, mine was a complete waste of time. I don't know about yours.
Yeah, basically.
I remember some graffiti on the day that I graduated. I went to the toilet in the uni, and somebody had graffitied over the loo roll, Trinity and All Saints degrees, please take one, above the toilet paper. And that's the most truthful thing that I read or heard in that university the whole time I was there. I say university, it was a college, but
But again, that's a big change. Like, my dad went to Big Leeds, when 1% of the people went, and he went and did his degree, did a master's, did a PhD, got like really qualified, and I think probably got a decent job afterwards. I'm sure it wasn't like minimum wage or whatever. And then my sister, sort of 30 years later, did the same at Big Leeds, went and got a PhD. But she ended up doing a shit job for about 3 years. So I think that change, where more and more people go to uni and finish their education, I think that became diluted.
I think
we just sort of goal.
We came to the end of a cycle, because like I was one of the first people in my family to go to university, but it had always been like an accolade that was highly sought after. And my parents' generation, it's like, oh, university degree, you can do anything that you want once you've got one of those powerful bits of paper. But yeah, it's. I think maybe our generation is probably one of the last to go to university and really think that it's of any value. I would recommend, if I had kids of that age, to go and get some work experience instead. The funny thing is, when I graduated, I came out of uni, all of the people that I'd left behind in my hometown had stayed out of uni and built their own businesses, usually in construction, and they were all, I was like 20 something grand in debt, and they were all like totally minted, and they were like 21, 22 years old. I was like, oh shit, I've definitely made the wrong decision there. And I've never really recovered from that, to be honest. It's been like that for me since I walked out with that stupid hat and that fake scroll. They don't even give you a proper scroll when you get that photo taken, by the way. There you go, burst a few bubbles.
I was so wasted at my graduation. Like,
did you graduate?
Yeah, from Bucks, man.
Oh my god.
But someone was getting an honorary degree, and like they went up, and it was like for bell ringing or something. I don't know. It's like something really odd. And I like stood up and started applauding, and no one else in the entire auditorium like moved. But because I'd started, I felt I had to finish. So I
just kept clapping on your own.
Yeah, and then just sat down in front of like 1,000 people. It was good times. I think. Sorry, just going back to the parenting thing. I think.
Can I take this photo of you, Dan?
Yeah, change it for the next one, because I know you like paradox. Don't you? You say paradoxically a lot. Paradoxically, part of being a parent is just trying to find moments where you can act like a child. And
You do, but you do that all. You're one of the most childish, supposed grown-ups I think I know.
I think I am with you, but like in work, I can't be. I'm literally responsible for people's lives in some cases, you know. And then most of the time with Lil, like I get time where I can play with toys with her, or I can.
You mean your wrestling dolls?
No, her dolls.
Oh right, she's got her own dolls.
Yeah, she's not allowed to touch them. And yeah, I find that I can be a kid. One of the most beautiful moments in like fatherhood, if you like, was I'd not long been sober, maybe about a year, and it was one of the first times I was able to have Lil at my place in Loughborough, and we went to this theme park, and you know I was skint at the time. I think I'd gone back to work, but I was doing like a part-time job or whatever, and we went to this theme park, and it wasn't Alton Towers, it was like a local one, but it was all rides and shit, and she was about 3, 2.5, 3, and we paid to get in. And immediately she was terrified of all the rides and stuff. But we saw a sand pit, and we went and played in the sand pit for 3 hours, just like being kids. And part of me, like my grown-up head, was like, "Oh, this has just cost me 50 quid to go and play in the sand pit." But then I was able to let that go and be a kid with her for 3 hours in a sand pit, and that was nice. I like that day.
This is definitely part of being a grown-up, is that you have to master your emotions, which includes setting an example for children. And I think that regardless if you have your own children or not, you have to try to be a role model. If you're spending time around kids, they have to see you pretending to be your best version of a grown-up. So they can see what one looks like, and that's the funny thing. Like I say, paradoxically, that's what my parents did when I was a kid, and then when I grew up, I realised that they were just pretending.
Yeah, and I think we all do. You know, as parents, yeah. I remember once someone saying, "Oh, there's not a book on how to raise kids." I'm like, "Bro, there's fucking hundreds of them. I've read 10 of them, waiting for whilst Lil's mum was pregnant."
Yeah,
but they're all bullshit.
Yeah, well, I think there are things that can be taught, and there are things that can be learned. Like it's the difference between. In fact, I did a video this morning with some students who were talking about self-help, and this woman doing a TED talk made a very good point. She said, "There's no end of information. Everybody's got access to information, but they don't have access to knowledge, and knowledge comes through experience, or wisdom comes through experience. There's just some things that you have to go through. Like we all know the typical phrases and the typical lessons of what you should do when you're trying to raise a child, but putting it into practice is a completely different question. So you got, like, I think you said to me before, like you make errors like all the time, and the thing about raising a child is that it's not an error like, oh, I've spilt some milk, I'll mop that up, clean that up, and tomorrow it'll be fine. It's like you make an error and you're like, oh, okay, that's a mental scar that's going to be with them forever.
Well, that's what I think. Yeah, like a friend of mine at
irreversible
work,
damage.
A friend of mine at work has this theory, and he's like worked in addiction studies for forever. And he's like, oh yeah, kids can have 7 traumas. And I'm like, in a weekend? Or no, in life. And then they're definitely going to be a junkie.
Yeah,
like, oh, fuck. Yeah, and I'm just immediately counting every time she cries, I count that as a trauma. And it's like, oh, okay, so we've gone through the 7 in the last hour.
There must be a scale of trauma, though. I mean,
I think there is.
Saying no to an ice cream is definitely not trauma.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest meltdown she's ever had, and I felt like really grown up when this happened, was I wouldn't let her ride Big Nige around the park. And
you're an animal.
I felt like I was being really grown up by telling her, no, you can't ride the dog, you'll kill him.
You've ridden me around loads of places.
Yeah, Nigel's bigger than you as well. So.
I knew. There we go. I knew it was coming. I was going to make a comment earlier about how growing up is just you just get taller. You don't it really change internally. But I knew it would be too good an opportunity for you to make a reference about my height.
Yeah,
you
did you
snuck it
notice
anyway.
that when you mentioned 2.4 children, I didn't say anything about your mum and dad having 1.4 children?
But now you have. Anyway,
Oh, damn it, sorry.
moving onwards.
Yeah.
Ceaselessly onwards. I think one of the things is learning how to be responsible for your own actions and the actions of others as well, especially if there's children involved. You have to make good decisions. And yeah, it's funny you say that. It made you feel grown up because it is grown up. Saying no to kids, there's a part of you, like you're talking about spending time in the sandpit. There is that part of you that is still a child that wants to enjoy the things like being a child. And when you're around kids, you're like, yeah, let's just have fun. But there's a danger in being the cool grown up because you end up just not teaching them anything, or the boundaries fall away and they get away with stuff, and it's more damaging than saying no. In fact, saying no is the right thing to do almost all of the time.
You know, I think that's a trap I fall into quite often.
Because you're a softie.
Yeah, both with Lil and, you know, our older two here. Like, I've come into a new family dynamic and I sort of started it.
Well, that's tough.
By going and
difficult.
playing mini golf, you know, and it's never got any more serious than that, really.
Yeah.
And I think I'm okay with that. I mean, the two girls are really good girls, so they don't need like shouting at. And if they do, I go, there you go, Sharon. They're yours, really. You do it. Yeah, but
I'll be in my man cave.
Yeah,
if you need me.
You know, being the fun guy. I think it's something I've always done, like in every aspect of life. You know, at work, I can get serious when I have to, but I'd rather not, if that makes sense. Where are you?
Sorry, there's a jet going over. I've got my window open. I'm underneath one of there's a military base next to my apartment. I don't know if you know that. This is one of the major landing points for NASA. Use it if there's an emergency and they're in this part of the world. They can emergency land their spacecraft just over my house. That's what's happening right now. Sorry about that. I'll close the window in a second. I wanted to talk. Sorry, go on.
Go on. No, you go.
I wanted to talk to you about some of the responsibilities that come in. So you like parenthood is definitely an essential part, I think, of being a grown up. What happens when it doesn't happen? Well, I don't know. I suppose you just get a dog. I might get a dog.
Done that. Yeah, you should get a dog. A dog would suit you.
Well, the other thing that you have to do is pay tax, and I don't really want to do that anymore. I'm getting sick of it.
Finances change the picture.
Finances.
Yeah, having some sort of financial awareness, I suppose. When you're younger, like, talking about uni, coming out with just thousands and thousands of pounds worth of debt, and
terrible mistake.
Yeah, I'm still paying mine off.
Yeah, me too.
And then, it's a case of when money comes in, you spend money. I certainly never used to save anything. And it's only through example from probably mostly my dad and my granddad that I've sort of saved a bit and been able to buy a house and all that stuff. And like, I don't have anything on credit, mostly because when I did have a credit card, like I just ruined my credit when I was young. And
Well, yeah, I blame our mutual friend Craig for a large part of my financial purgatory.
really,
Well, yeah, because at uni when I met him, I was a student, so I didn't have any money, and he said, "Oh man, just get an overdraft. It's free money." And that term that haunted me for the rest of my life. Free money, free money. So yeah, he talked me through the process of getting this free money overdraft. And back in the day, there were like fees. They used to charge you for using your overdraft that would then make you overdrawn, and then you get charged for being overdrawn, which would make you deeper in the overdraft, which you get charged for. And then before you knew it, you were just spiraling into this financial black hole. And yeah, that was Craig's fault, not mine. I refuse to take responsibility because I'm not a grown-up.
yeah. I mean, I'm lucky. I've got some savings, but I live in my overdraft.
Mm.
Like it's when you go over your overdraft that it's
Yeah.
like that's difficult.
As you find new space, exploring new territory.
But it's weird. Like I'm still so bad with money that if I find I'm really in my overdraft, I think to myself, I've got like I don't know £1,400 overdraft allowance or whatever, and sometimes I'll go, I've made a bit on shares. I'll put £1,400 in when I get paid, and then I've got my salary. So I start at zero, and then my salary goes in, and that'll be good for like 3 or 4 months. But then something happens, and it's like, shit, I'm back in my £1,400 overdraft. I mean, I'm awful with money. I really shouldn't be allowed it. It's,
Yeah, that's. I mean, I've solved that problem for you in my own life by not having any. So if you don't have any, it's just you don't have to worry about it so much.
yeah, but I think again for me, just nature and nurture. I suppose like I've been taught by family, but to have something in reserve and to try and be as debt free as possible is a really important part of being a grown up.
Yeah. Well, my parents were a bit, well, certainly my dad was a bit hippie, so he installed the worst possible software into my being, into my outlook for life, which was, the most important thing is to be happy. You got to seek happiness, which is bullshit, by the way. Anyone who is listening, well, my mum, tell him he was wrong, because that's not helped at all. It's very difficult to be happy when you're £20,000 in debt.
Yeah.
Don't worry about it, man.
Yeah, I think, a wise man once said, money makes you happy when you can give it away. And I understand that a little bit. Like, I probably pay a bit more maintenance for Lily than I have to. And if a friend needs to borrow a few quid, I'm glad that I'm in the position that I might be able to help them out. And that makes me happy. But like the rest of it makes me quite stressed out, especially like because my investments and my savings are in investments, and then like something that happens in fucking Croatia means that like my savings have tanked for a week, and it's like there's so much stuff that I don't understand.
Well, that's again, it comes down to responsibility, doesn't it? The whole money issue. I mean, you do have a responsibility to look after yourself and anyone that you care for that is in your circle. And that can be difficult because it's just a never-ending. It can be something that really consumes all of your time. It shouldn't. You shouldn't allow it to consume all of your time. You got this. Another aspect of responsibility is how you distribute your resources, how you distribute your energy between making money so you can look after your nearest and dearest, and spending time with them, and sitting in a sandpit and all of that stuff.
Yeah, that sort of working out how to balance life. I think that's a very grown-up trait, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't worked it out.
Yeah. But I think it's part of being a grown-up where you get to a position where that balance is easier. Do you know what I mean? And does that include being financially stable, emotionally stable?
Yeah, just making better decisions. It's easy to make poor decisions when you're young because you're young. You've got the rest of your life ahead of you. But when you've got less
time to get over it,
you've got less life ahead of you. When you get past that kind of, or you're at the midway point, you're kind of forced to grow up because it's like, okay, I can't keep making these shitty decisions. I'm sure that played some role in your sobriety, right? I mean, that's the way I feel about sobriety nowadays. I enjoy being sober much more than I would enjoy being drunk. And all of the stuff that comes with it, all of the stuff that comes with abusing any substance now, it's like, I see all of the negative things that are attached to it, which you have to train yourself to ignore when you're younger.
Yeah, but you're talking about because you're running out of time, like death is looming over you. So
it's not so much
got time for a hangover.
It's not so much that. It's also, I mean, it is that, but it's also that there's not enough time to make something worthwhile of my life. Like it's not that I'm going to die tomorrow, although that is, a memento mori is a good way to think, but it's more that I need the time to be able to build anything, because it takes time. If I want to change career, then that's going to take 6 months, 12 months. If I want to start a new relationship, I've got to find a person, put the stuff on the rag, put it over the mouth. It takes time and planning.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, maybe that's part of being a grown-up. Time is more precious to us.
Yeah.
But I don't think that's because death is approaching. I think, for me, like, I think I appreciate stuff more, like, not things, like, just everything. I appreciate the time I can spend with people. As you get older and become a grown-up, you get a lot more busy, don't you? There's always shit to do, and that comes from responsibilities. And that doesn't have to be kids or partners or families. Just everyday life is full of responsibilities, and a lot of them are shit. Like, do the DIY picture. Like we moved into a house. There's a million things to do, and there's a million more things that I don't do that Sharon probably does for us. Well, probably. There's no probably about it. She does a hell of a lot because she's a lot more grown up than me. And I'm at my core, I'm a lazy sodding teenager. I mean that's a paradoxical picture. There's me trying to do DIY and getting a load of flooring in a fucking convertible because I'm not grown up enough.
You like to feel the wind in your hair.
Mondeo. My nose hair. That's another thing that you get when you grow up. But so that picture is a mix of practicality and absolute immaturity. It's like.
It's
go
well
and buy
balanced.
some flooring, and you can't. You'll notice it's not exactly blue skies either. I'm sure I got absolutely soaked on the way home with that.
That makes sense though. You wouldn't have fit it in if you couldn't get rid of the roof. It's probably easier like that, isn't it?
Yeah, but it would have been more sensible to buy a Ford Mondeo, wouldn't it? You know what I mean? I've got 3 dogs, 3 kids.
Doesn't
and
look
I've got
doesn't
the
look
world's
as cool.
smallest back seats.
Did you know that England has the highest rainfall in Europe but it also has the highest number of convertible owners.
Yeah, probably.
That's true. I read that recently.
We're very hopeful people.
Yeah.
You know, I
It's
don't
just-
have that car anymore. I wrote it off irresponsibly.
Nice.
But I have got. I went and bought. You haven't got a picture of this, but I went and bought a VW T-Roc, which is like a people carrier. It's like a Range Rover type size.
Oh
But
no!
I got the one without a roof on it, didn't I? Because I'm still a prick.
Oh no! Here comes another jet. Sorry, I didn't close my window.
Oh, it sounds exciting, your house.
It was, yeah. I mean, it's difficult to sleep.
Yeah. Well, with jets and massive Scottish men and their horses clip-clopping about your house.
That's an F-18. If
Oh.
you're interested,
I wonder where it's going.
military base is going to land. They practice manoeuvres around. Oh, here you go. This is another thing. I don't know if this is a thing about being grown up or just being a middle-aged man, because they're different things. Being a middle-aged man and being a grown-up.
Yeah,
But
you don't have to be
you're kind of just to connect to a previous episode on collecting. I feel that you get a heightened sense of obsession with certain things. Like I found myself in my later years becoming more interested in facts and stuff like history, and it's different for everyone. But I like to. I mean, like that plane just flew over, and I knew it was an F-18. I wouldn't have said that in my 20s. I'd have gone, "Oh, look, it's a flappy, one of those overhead noisemakers."
It's a grey one.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I get that. I think another part of being a grown up, you know, like if we go back to those original 5 rungs on the ladder, one of them being finish your education. I think part of being a grown up is realising that education you got at Task or at Bucks is
useless.
pretty fucking useless. And you were a child when you decided to go and do it. And I think educating, learning, developing yourself, I think that's a sign of being a grown up.
I think it's also just an inevitable consequence of growing old, because even if you're a moron, over a period of time you're going to collect information that maybe other people, not everybody has the same information, not everybody has the same experiences. So you'll always, like, I know that's an F-18 because I live next to a military base, and one time somebody said that's an F-18. I'm not actually entirely sure if that is an F-18. It's just somebody told me that, so I say it. I just repeat it now because it makes me sound like I know what I'm talking about.
Well, I think that's something about being a grown-up, having confidence and conviction in things that you say. You know, I think that comes from being sort of more comfortable in your own skin.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, that's a matter of time, because you embarrass yourself, you humiliate yourself like enough times that your skin gets thick enough that you just don't really. I suppose you stop caring so much about what other people think. At least that's in my case. I don't know if that's the same for everyone.
Yeah,
But
yeah. To put it into a literal context, me and Sharon were watching this thing with Miriam Margolyes. Do you know her?
I think so. Yeah.
She's like touring around the US, and she went to a nudist place. Everyone there is grown up as fuck. They're like, you know, there's no, all just really confident and don't give a fuck. You know, and I think that's a sign of being a grown up.
I know who you mean. She was in Romeo and Juliet.
I don't know.
She was the Spanish Infanta in Blackadder.
Yes, all right. Yeah, she was in Blackadder. Yeah, I don't know what character, but
she looks like a hedgehog now.
Yeah, she looks a bit like Grotbags without the green makeup.
That's
Lovely lady though. She's like 82. And she's someone who really does not give a fuck. And I think that's part of being grown up, like not caring as much what people think about you.
I'd connect that to what we were saying about time, because you have less time for other people's bullshit. Like I spend less time with people that I choose not to spend time with people that I don't want to spend time with, which means that my friend group is roughly, I mean, it's a circle of one. It's not as big as it used to be, because I just don't have, I can't be bothered to listen to other people just talk nonsense. And I think where, hang on a minute, where are you? Are you under the, what was that?
Oh, that was just a car going. Oh, I'm outside your door.
I was going to say, I thought you'd come to visit.
I'm couch surfing. I'm going to pee all night.
No, please don't do that. I'm very annoyed. Yeah, well, you're talking about that, actually. That's the other thing, finally, on the end of my list, is the physical changes of being a grown-up. Maybe this is not so much being a grown-up, just being an older person. I love napping now, and I've stopped feeling bad about it. I mean, I live in a country where it's actually culturally encouraged.
Yeah.
Obviously, the siesta.
Yeah, I'm quite jealous.
It's great. I can get away with that. Nobody's going to judge me. Obviously, in England, people are like, "Oh, are you ill? Why are you sleeping during the day? You can't do that. You're not allowed to do it."
I've got a question about siestas.
Yeah, go on.
Right, so when we came out to see you, like, a lot of the shops and that shut, don't they?
Yeah, yeah.
But what if you work in, like, a call centre?
In a call centre?
Yeah. Do they just shut for the afternoon so you can go and have a nap?
Yeah, yeah, they do. Yeah, everywhere shuts. Yeah, the offices close. Everybody goes home for lunch or a siesta.
That's mad.
They're trying to change that though, because it's a weird timetable. It's not as common now as it used to be. It's been phased out. But you'd finish you go to work at 9 o'clock or 8 o'clock until 2, and then you go home for 2 hours. Or 3 in some places. You come back at 4 or 5, and a lot of people would go home and they have like a big lunch. Like, you know, in England you wouldn't really have a big lunch because you're going to be working.
You get like a sandwich.
Yeah, you don't bother with that. But here they have like a proper sit-down meal, in the middle of the day, and maybe a little sleepy afterwards.
Yeah. But no, naps are good. I enjoy it, especially at a weekend. On a Sunday, this Sunday we went, I cooked like a brunch for everyone, and then we went for a walk and got back about 1, and I woke up at 5. You know, that's more
just time travelling.
Sleep.
Yeah, just teleported into the future.
Yeah, physical changes. There's a lot. Like, I'm fat now. I think I used to be able to get away. Well, I'm even fatter. You'll say I was fat, but I think maybe when I was 38, I got in shape a bit. But now, because I do absolutely no exercise other than walking the dog, I'm getting fat, and that plays on my mind because I think that makes me look older. Yeah.
I think it's something that that's something from the previous generation that I think is falling away, because I think it was more acceptable in the past. It was kind of expected that you get the pot belly, and I remember my dad used to have his nap on a Sunday. We always go into the living room and he'd be reading the paper with his eyes closed, just snoring that dad snore, because that's something that comes with time. But yeah, no, I get what you're saying. The thing that the cruelest joke that nature plays in becoming a grown up as a man is that it takes away the hair from the places where you want it and sticks it in places where you don't want it. I thought, I don't need hair coming out of my ears. I don't need that. What's that for?
Have I told you about my one and
from?
only Turkish barber experience? No. So I went just to get like my beard trimmed up a bit, like get some nice lines or whatever. I don't really know what I went in for. He's like, yeah, we'll sort you out. And then, so he trimmed it all up. That was nice. And then he puts a hot towel around my head and takes my glasses off. So it's almost like a steaming burqa. I've just got a little slot where I can see out, but I haven't got my glasses on, so I can't really see anything. And then I'm all relaxed. Then out of nowhere, he comes at me with 2 sticks.
Sticks?
With flaming hot wax on them.
Oh,
and there's Rambos in my nose. I was like, what the fuck? He's like, oh, nose hair. Oh.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, okay, all right, I didn't ask for it, but thanks. I'm going to add you to the Me Too campaign. And that wasn't the end of it then. Then, out
Stuck one up your arse?
out of my peripheral vision, I see him coming at me with fire. And he had like a cotton ball on the end of a stick on fire, and he started hitting my ears with it to get rid of the ear hair. And then as he's burning my ears, he rips the nose stuff out, and he looks at it and he goes, you haven't had this before. And I'm like, no, nor do I want it again.
Are you sure he was a barber? It might have just been somebody that you pissed off in.
Turkish barbers. They're in the woods at night, aren't they? Is that what? No, it was. It was like, I don't know, but yeah, hair in the wrong places, creaky bones. That's another. Bones. Yeah, my knees are a bit knackered.
Oh God!
One physical thing that I do, which I quite enjoy sometimes when I realise I'm doing it, is if I'm walking, I put my hands behind my back. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. Oh my God! I didn't know you were that old.
Other hand. Yeah, I quite often find myself doing that. Yeah.
Do you, when you do that sometimes? Do you, if you get to like a fence or something that you want to have a look at, do you just slightly raise yourself up on the front, like on your tippy toes, on your feet, with your hands behind your back, just to have a closer look at whatever's in the distance? Do you do that?
And sometimes I do the what I call the church rock, which I remember from my youth. My dad just standing in church, slowly swaying back and forth as if he's like the Eiffel Tower in high wind.
You have to announce your departure by saying, "Right then," and slapping your thighs with your hands.
Yeah, I also like going to bed quite early.
Yeah, I enjoy that.
Sharon hates that. I'm like, 10:30. I'm like, and apparently I just go, right, I'm off to bed. Like, whatever's happening, I just go, I'm off. I'm going to bed.
Mid-intercourse.
Yeah, I'm done. My alarm's
finished.
gone off. Yeah. So what are we summing up being a grown-up?
Well, I'd like you, if you can, to either give some advice to your younger self or to a fictional youth. What would you, from your perspective as an elderly man now?
Well, if I'm talking to my younger self, I think care less what people think.
Oh, that was my one. I was going to say that. Damn.
Sorry. Don't try and impress anyone. And look after your feet.
Look after your feet.
Yeah.
I'd say exactly the same thing except for the feet. But I would add, money isn't the most important thing in the world, but it does matter. You'll notice when you've not got enough of it, and you'll notice when you've got too much. So just make sure that you're in the middle there somewhere. And also, if you meet a red-headed man called Richard, just run in the opposite direction.
I'll follow you anyway. All right. True. That was a lovely show.
Yeah, that was lovely speaking to you.
Yeah,
all
follow
right.
us on X. Right.
Okay. So,
love you, bye.
Bye. Bye.
All right. You mean basically you just want to have a chat at the weekend and record it? Fine. Yeah.
That's what it sounds like to me.
Because obviously we're all middle-aged now, and a lot of my friends are going through some kind of crisis.
Jesus Christ, man. Oh!
You know, there's a lot of work involved because, like, I'm going to ask you lots of questions.
You should probably burn her and throw her ashes in the river.
I mean, if you just want to have a conversation for the week, if you're lonely, Richard, just tell me.
You really know how to make me feel self-conscious. I'm sure we were. I'm sure we were cool at one point. Were we? I think so.
Consigning it to digital evidence that will then be played back to them in court.
Why are we even talking about this?
you might lose interest very quickly because I have a habit of making these passion projects very boring very quickly.
Sometimes I just like talking about things that I don't really understand.
So yeah, there you go. There's loads of questions for you, and have a lovely day.
Seriously though, are you sure?
That's my opinion.
They do say it's good to talk, but I never hear them actually talking. This show with Ben and Rich.
This show with Ben and Rich. You found a way to communicate your feelings without actually directly communicating your feelings. Stop it.